right. So, hey, what anchor do you recommend nowadays as the tier one? Is it somehow correct that 60 to 70% just brand name and naked URLs, 15% generic, 5% exact match, and what this should be for a simple blog site? Okay, so let me pause for just a minute. I'm going to pause the screen while I open up a workbook, guys. I'm going to show you guys an example of something. I teach this in the mastermind. So this is not something that I'm going to go super in depth with right now about this because it's not, I teach this in the mastermind specifically, but I do want to give you guys a kind of a high level overview on this. So just give me a minute. I'm just opening up. Let's go with this one. I don't care. I've got to be careful about what I share because I tend to get negative SEO'd when I share stuff sometimes. So, which I don't understand why. All I try to do is provide value. And yet there's just people out there that are shitty, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to give you guys an example here. This is an old report. It has not been updated anytime recently, but it's from a lead gen asset. I can show this to you. I know you're not seeing my screen. Just give me 1 minute. All right. So to get back to the question, you're now seeing my screen, correct, Chris?
Yes, but now we're talking. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I just want to clarify something, guys. That a blanket formula, I'm going to give you some guidelines, some rules of thumb here that you can use, but a blanket kind of formula for anchor text ratios is never correct, never proper. And the reason why is because it's going to vary. Every search query is going to vary the results. And if you're doing local, the same search query, but in different locations, it's going to vary too as to what the proper anchor text ratios are. So I'll be 100% transparent. I always give credit where credit is due. I learned this technique from Matt Diggity, which was for affiliate SEO stuff, but I tested it for weeks with a lot of my own lead gen assets and everything, and clients, to see if if his kind of method for determining proper anchor text ratios would apply to local. And damn if it didn't. It works fantastic. So I went ahead and created an Excel sheet that you're looking at here. Let me just rearrange this stuff a little bit. I created an Excel workbook. If you're a mastermind member, I've already posted about this in the mastermind. It's a pinned post in the featured section of our Facebook group. You guys have access to this. I've covered many, many times exactly how to populate all this sheet with all the data, where to get the data and everything else. So this has been covered multiple times in the mastermind. I'm not going to cover the whole process here. That wouldn't be fair to our mastermind members, but I will cover it high level or conceptually. Okay. But the thing that I'm trying to point out here is a blanket formula is never a good idea because every search query is going to be different. If it's local, you're going to now also include locations. So the same search query searched in 2 different locations is going to return different results. The anchor text ratios are going to be different. There are some similarities that I see over and over and over again across all different types of local projects. Remember, guys, all I do is local. So I'm going to be talking about this in the context of local. But it also, again, this method of determining anchor text ratios I got from Matt Diggity, and it absolutely applies to local as well. Okay, so we're going to cover, again, what it is that, how I determine this here. But in this case, you can see at the bottom that at the bottom, the sheet is named Tree Service Winchester, VA. So that's the keyword that was used to determine what the top ranked competitors are, and then what their anchor text ratios are. So we always start with analyzing the three tier 0 assets, the target assets, which would be, and I say 3 tier 0 for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. When we're talking about a local entity, somebody knocking on my door. Well, they're just gonna have to keep knocking. When you're talking about a local entity, a local project, there are, if it has a Google business asset or profile associated with it, then there are really 3 components, potentially 3 components: the money site or the self-hosted website, the Google business website, if you publish it, which you should, and the Google map, which if you have a Google business profile, you have a Google map, a Google business map. Okay. So those are the 3 tier 0 assets. Those 3, what I call the holy trinity of the local entity. And I say that kind of as a joke, but it really is the truth because those 3 components make up the local entity. Okay. So we always analyze those first. We look at the backlink profile to each of those. Specifically, when we're talking about the map, we're looking at the CID map URL because the CID map URL is the only URL that you can push link equity into the map. Either that or the really long, ugly map URL that nobody ever links to. And by the way, I don't recommend building a lot of links to the CID map URL, guys. That's a spam signal. Don't do that. Like nobody even knows how to get the CID map URL except for SEOs. Okay. So what I mean by that is, you know, bloggers and the regular people, civilians, they do not have, they don't know how to get the CID map URL, right? So the share URL, which is a 302 redirect, which means you can't push link equity with it, but it's still valuable, guys. You still want to have links built to that because that is a natural looking link profile. So specifically when it comes to this, the reason why we analyze the CID map URLs is we want to know what kind of work has been done to that, what kind of links have been built to it, has it been spammed, all of that kind of stuff. So we're very, very careful about, or I'm very careful about building links to the CID map URL. There are strategic places where it makes sense to use the CID map URL because the CID map URL has a company ID. That's what CID is for. That's like a machine ID. So it is valuable to place that link in specific locations. Okay. One of them, a good place for that is if you've ever done structured data or schema for local businesses, you know that one of the types or designations that you can put in there is a has map attribute, right? Has map attribute. That's a good place for a CID map URL, again, because of the CID, the company ID, the machine ID, right? That's for the Google bot, the structured data schemas for the Google bot. So anyway, back to the question about anchor text ratios. We analyze these three assets to try to determine what the current anchor text ratios are for our target assets. We classify each, first of all, when we analyze the backlink profile, we look at only do follow links. We eliminate no follow links from the anchor, from the analysis. Why? Well, because no follow links are valuable for SEO. Anybody that tells you differently is wrong. No follow links are valuable for SEO, but the anchor text from no follow links does not affect anchor text ratios. So we eliminate no follow links from the analysis. Then what links are left, we then classify each one of those anchor texts into one of 5 categories. Brand/URL, the brand name is the anchor text, or the URL is the anchor. Another term for that would be a URL anchor or a naked URL, or what I call a compound anchor. A compound anchor is a brand name plus a keyword modifier, or brand name plus location modifier, or something like that. Okay, so that's the first category, anchor text category. Anchor text category number 2 is miscellaneous. Another term for that is generic. So that would be like click here, learn more, this site, this post, website, etc. You guys get that. Then a empty/frame anchor, which is category number 3. That is a redirect URL or an iframe or an embed or an image link, a backlink from a photo, an image link that does not contain alt text. If it has alt text, then the alt text is the anchor text. Does that make sense? Then there's target anchors. Target anchors are keyword plus location modifier. So that's keyword plus city, or city plus keyword, or keyword plus near me, or one of the variants of near me. So that's like nearby, around me, close to me, in my area, etc. All of those are all kind of considered location modifiers. So that's a target anchor, keyword plus location modifier. Lastly, a topic anchor is a keyword only. So product or service keywords without location modifiers. Does that make sense? So we then analyze all of the backlinks, do follow backlinks that are live, and we classify each one of the anchor texts into one of 5 categories. And that gives us what our current anchor text ratios are for the 3 tier 0 assets. Then for that same, then for the search query that we want to analyze competition for, we go just perform a search and then look at the organic ranked competitors and pull in the top 5 ranked organic competitors, like for like comparisons. What do I mean by that? Well, we're not analyzing the backlink profile of Yelp or Home Advisor or Lawn Starter or any of the big directory sites, because they play by an entirely different set of rules. What we want to compare our sites, our assets to, are other local business type sites, not big directory sites. Okay. So we pull in the top 5 ranked competitors. Most of the time we're going to find those on page 1. Sometimes we got to go back to page 2 to find a 5th competitor. And then we do the exact same process of analyzing their backlinks the same way that I just described for the target assets. So we eliminate no follow links. Then we classify each one of the remaining links into one of 5 anchor text categories, and we get our numbers, right? So, and when this sheet, which is an Excel workbook, again, you just plug these numbers in, all the formulas are already set up. It automatically creates all these pie charts and everything else. It's fabulous, because what this does is it gives us an average number of backlinks for the ranking URLs for that particular search query, which in this case was tree service Winchester, VA. Again, this is an older report, so these search results probably have shifted, and that was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that, so let me close that out. Anyways, this is an older report. So, but what I'm trying to say here is we have now an anchor text ratios that are averaged out. So each one of these has their own anchor text ratio, but it's all averaged out into this graph. This gives us an average number of backlinks to these ranking URLs for that particular search query, which we try not to exceed that when link building, if possible. Sometimes it's already been exceeded, so there's nothing you can do about it, but we try not to exceed that if possible. But what's more important than the number of links is the anchor text ratios. Because now think about this, guys, we're talking purely external backlink profile analysis. We are not looking at on page. We're looking at purely external backlink profile. But whatever they're doing, Google likes, or else these 5 companies would not be the top 5 ranked organic competitors that are local business competitors. Again, we're not talking about directory sites. So whatever they're doing as far as their backlink profile and their anchor text ratios, Google obviously likes it, or else they wouldn't be ranked. So we average those top 5 out so that we get a target that we can kind of like, or an anchor text ratio that we can model our own after. Does that make sense? It doesn't have to be exact because this is just an average. Now, here is where some kind of rules of thumb, or whatever you want to call it, some guidelines come in that I want to describe. And this is one of the rare cases that I see something. Well, actually, no, this actually falls right in line with what I was just about to say. I manage, like when I first started using this method for determining anchor text ratios, I was doing it almost exclusively for just tree service stuff for my own agency. This is before I started my link building business, guys. And then for my own lead gen assets, because I was testing, I'm sure I've talked about this before, but I had about 3 dozen lead gen assets that had been producing very, very well for me for years. I had about 3 dozen of them 2 years ago, tanked. They weren't suspended, but they tanked in rankings. And so at the time, because all I cared about was maps ranking, for many years, I didn't give a shit about organic ranking at all. So I just cared about maps rankings. But then when I had a bunch of my, like over 3 dozen lead gen assets that produced for me very well for years, they tanked in rankings. They did not get suspended, but they dropped in rankings. I had wished at that point that I had kept up with the organic ranking, because if I had, then I might have lost the maps ranking, but I still would have been generating leads from those assets, those locations, because I would have had organic ranking. So this is what kind of started this whole journey for me, was trying to figure out, okay, shit, I need to learn how to do organic SEO again for local, so that I can prevent this from happening. Well, first of all, recover my assets, and number 2, so that I can prevent this from happening. So ever since that point, which was in June of 2021, or 2020 or whatever. Anyways, it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever. I started kind of sharpening my skills for organic ranking for local projects as well. So what I'm saying is, when I started testing this on all my own lead gen assets and started seeing that it was indeed working really well, determining anchor text ratios, and in modeling my own sites after that, I started getting my results. So then I started doing it for some of my agency clients that aren't tree service contractors. I have some legacy clients that are in different industries, roofers, pest control, landscaping companies, etc. And sure enough, I was starting to see the same thing with them. So fast forward a few months into when I started my link building business, now I manage over 70 different locations across all different industries in various countries, all local stuff. And what I found is, by analyzing all these ranked competitors, what I see is 80%, the 80-20 rule here applies. 80% of the time, the top 5 ranked organic competitors have an average anchor text ratio in the brand/URL category between 40 to 60%. Does that make sense? So again, this one falls right in line with that. It's at 43% brand anchors is the anchor text ratio average of the top 5. So I'm going to repeat that statement again. 80% of the time for local search queries, local search terms, the average anchor text ratio of the top 5 ranked competitors is between 40 to 60% brand anchors. So that's the only rule of thumb that I can say with confidence that I can suggest, is that if you are ever in doubt as to what kind of anchor text link to build directly to the money site, doesn't matter which page or post it is, where you're building the link to on the money site, whether it's the home page or an inner page, it doesn't matter. If you question or you ever have any doubt as to what kind of anchor text to build, just build a brand anchor. full stop, right? That's the easiest thing to do. I've never seen a site penalized for over optimized or for brand anchors. I've seen a site penalized for too many links or too many links too quickly. So link velocity, or for shitty links, but I've not seen an over optimized penalty for brand anchors. Does that make sense? So again, the only rule of thumb that I can ever suggest is whenever in doubt about what kind of anchor text to build directly to the money site, no matter where it is on the money site, go with a brand anchor. I don't like to build URL anchors anymore, guys, because anchor text should be descriptive of what it's linking to, what the destination is. And URL anchors aren't really descriptive of what it's linking to. So I don't like to build URL anchors. Not only that, but in natural link profile, you're going to pick up URL anchors, and you're also going to pick up miscellaneous anchors. That's this red. Miscellaneous, another term for that, generic. So click here, learn more, website, etc. When you build citations for local projects, almost exclusively all of the links that you get from citations are going to be either URL anchors or they're going to be generic or miscellaneous anchors, right? When you do Google business posts and you link to your money site, the CTA button, what he says, call or learn more or book. If you have a button, a link, a button that links, that connects to a link, those are generic anchors or miscellaneous anchors. So naturally, you're going to accrue miscellaneous anchors anyway. You should. Naturally, you're going to accrue URL anchors to a degree. So I don't build URL anchors or miscellaneous or generic anchors intentionally anymore at all. I always use anchor text anchors, and I use brand name or compound anchors, which is brand plus keyword, brand plus location modifier, etc. But I build again almost exclusively. And here is one other thing I can mention. So just back to what I was saying, and then I'll show you the diagram, and then we're going to move on to the next question. The smartest way to determine what the appropriate anchor text ratios are for whatever project it is you're working on is go analyze the top ranked competitors and go through the process that I just described here. Again, you want a copy of this workbook, come join the mastermind. I'll give it to you. I've done training like several times. I've done training on exactly how to get all of this data and what to do with it. So, but what I was going to say was, and no matter what search query it is that you want to rank for, just look at the top ranked competitors. Use Google's own data to determine what the proper anchor text ratios should be. Does that make sense? And again, remember this, you don't have to get exact to these numbers, guys. These are just an average. You just want to get close. What this is telling me is that I should be heavy on brand anchors, which is almost always the case. But then you can see that there's 9% target anchors, 5% topic anchors, 7% embeds or iframes, empty/frame anchors, and 36% miscellaneous. Again, I do not build miscellaneous anchors, period. Anywhere. I don't do it. Not intentionally. Like if I'm placing the link, I'm going to build an anchor text link, right? So a keyword or brand or something. If I'm building citations or getting citations built, things like that, they're naturally going to have miscellaneous anchors. So even like press releases, people talk about in press releases, use a brand anchor, or press releases use a URL anchor. The way that I do everything is I think anchor text should be descriptive of what it is linking to. So I don't like to use URL anchors. And by the way, I don't like to use press releases to link directly to the money site at all anymore. I've talked about that a lot lately too. I always use the Google business posts as a buffer to the money site for press releases. So just use Google's own data, guys. It's one of the best things you can do. Like, in my opinion, it's just like, think about all those page optimizing tools, guys, that I'm looking for a diagram here for you guys. Just give me a minute. All those page optimizing tools, what do? They analyze the top ranked results, and they, crunch all that data. And then they tell you there's this many head H1s and this many, or it'll tell you how many H1s, but there should only be one. There's this many H2s. There's this many H3s. There's this many words, an average number of words. There's this many entities, depending on what kind of page optimizing tool you're using. I like to use on-page.ai now, which is Eric Lancheras' tool. That's probably my favorite tool right now. It tells you the number of entities, the word count, number of heading tags, number of images, all of that kind of stuff. Well, we've all been using those kind of tools now for the last couple of years. So why not do the same thing with backlinks when you're trying to figure out what your anchor text ratios should be? Use the same kind of methodology, which is look at the data, look at the currently ranked stuff, analyze that, and now you've got your anchor text ratios. So here's an example of a local link building diagram that just kind of explains what I just mentioned. I do tiered link building. And so at tier 1, linking to the 3 tier 0 assets, I always recommend brand/URL. Again, I specifically just build brand anchors. I don't build URL anchors. I build brand anchors. Embeds to a lesser degree, you can do that too. Those aren't harmful, but you got to be careful when you're doing an embed of the money site. I don't like to do embeds of the money site because sometimes, depending on the link source, the link can overpower or cannibalize the money site when the money site's embedded into that page. I've seen it happen. So again, I do a lot of Google business website embeds and Google Map embeds, but for the money site, we rarely do embeds at all. We do anchor text links. Okay. So at tier 1, we focus mainly on brand anchors and embeds for the Google business website and the Google Map. I do very, very few, if any, URL anchors. At tier 2, we go real heavy on target anchors. This does not mean we do exclusively at tier 2 target anchors. This is again, just a diagram, a representation. We go heavy on target anchors. Again, target anchors, keyword plus location modifier. At tier 3, but by the way, we do a mix of target and topic anchors at tier 2, but it's heavier on target anchors. Okay. At tier 3, if we get out to tier 3, it's almost exclusively topic anchors. So those are keywords without location modifiers. Does that make sense? So it's like a hierarchy, guys. If you ever looked at marketing funnel, right? There's top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Top of funnel would be tier 3. Middle of funnel, what's more targeted, more specific, that's tier 2, right? Bottom of funnel is going to be the most specific. That's going to be your brand anchors. So if you think about it that way, you go broad and you start to narrow down as you get down to tier 1, which tier 1 primarily should be brand anchors. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful. That was a good question, by the way. So there you go. Do not use formulas, guys. Create your own formula from Google's data. That's what this does, right? This is the formula for this particular search query, right? If we looked at tree removal and Winchester, right? That's going to probably, there might be some similarities, but it's going to be a different set of data. If we look at tree service, the same keyword, but a different city, let's say Richmond, Virginia, it's going to give us another set of data. So there should not be any, the only rule of thumb that I would ever consider saying is just, if ever in doubt, build a brand anchor, period. It doesn't matter where the link is pointing to on the money site. A brand anchor is your safest way to go. And again, 40 to 60% of the top 5 ranked competitors are, and 80% of the time, 40 to 60% of the anchor text ratios are in the brand/URL category. So it's your safest bet, right?